The myth of slow and fast carbohydrates. Is everything really that simple with the glycemic index? Have you ever frozen before a pastry shop window, feeling a real war unfolding inside between a fleeting desire and an endless, exhausting sense of guilt? We have all gone through this, standing in the supermarket and frantically reading the fine print on the packaging, trying to find answers there to questions that have tormented us for decades. A strange and cruel cult has formed in our society, where food has ceased to be a source of life and joy, turning into a complex mathematical problem, or even worse, a reason for self-flagellation. We are used to dividing the world into black and white, into healthy and harmful, into fast and slow carbohydrates, believing that if we crack this code, we will finally find peace and the perfect reflection in the mirror. But today, I want to talk to you not as a strict nutritionist, but as a woman who has herself passed through the labyrinths of restrictions and knows how painful it can be to be disappointed in dogmas that seemed unshakable. It all began back in 1981 when a Canadian professor named David Jenkins decided to create a tool that would help people with diabetes better control their blood sugar levels. It was then that the concept of the glycemic index was born, which subsequently became a true holy grail for millions of women around the world. The idea seemed brilliantly simple and logical. Different foods affect glucose levels differently, and if we choose only those that release energy slowly, we will become healthy and slim. We began to believe that white rice is a treacherous enemy, and oatmeal is our only true ally in the struggle for beauty. But life, as often happens, turned out to be much more complex and multifaceted than the dry numbers in the tables that we so diligently printed out and hung on the refrigerator door. Think for a moment about how often we blindly trust a theory without listening to the whisper of our own body, which knows much more about us than any professor. The glycemic index was measured in laboratory conditions, where volunteers ate a certain amount of a pure product on an empty stomach after a long night's sleep. 8 ounces or 50 grams of pure glucose, or a portion of boiled carrots with nothing else. In real life, we drink coffee with milk, add a piece of butter to our porridge, sprinkle nuts on a salad, or eat meat together with a side dish. And this is where the most interesting part begins, because any proximity of proteins, fats, and fiber completely changes the rules of the game, turning a supposedly dangerous fast carbohydrate into something completely different for our body. My dear ones, imagine that you decided to eat a ripe banana, which by all canons is considered a product with a fairly high index. If you eat it alone, on the run, your sugar might indeed make a sharp jump upward and then fall just as rapidly, leaving you in a state of exhaustion and hunger 30 minutes later. But if you add a handful of almonds or a spoonful of natural yogurt to this banana, the picture will change radically, as fats and proteins will slow down the absorption of sugars. This means that the concept of fast and slow carbohydrates in isolation from the general context of a meal is nothing more than a beautiful but very fragile illusion. For years, we deprived ourselves of our favorite fruits, or were afraid to eat a piece of white bread with butter, not realizing that our body reacts to the entire dish as a whole and not to its individual components. An even more startling discovery awaited scientists when they began to study the individual reactions of different people to the same products. During a large-scale study conducted in Israel several years ago, it turned out that in one person, sugar levels could soar from ordinary white bread, but remain stable after a portion of ice cream. In another subject, the reaction was the mirror opposite, which led the researchers into complete confusion. It turned out that our microbiome, our stress level, the quality of our sleep, and even genetic predisposition play a much more important role than averaged tables from the internet. This discovery should have been a liberation for us, but we continue to cling to old myths because we are afraid to take responsibility for the dialogue with our own bodies. We are used to looking for external authorities who will tell us what is allowed and what is not, forgetting that each of us is unique and irreplaceable in our biological needs. When we divide food into good and bad, we create a constant source of tension in our heads, which ultimately leads to breakdowns and psychological exhaustion. The glycemic index has become a kind of prison for many of us, where every grape eaten is followed by a harsh sentence from an internal judge. But food is not just fuel and not just a plasma glucose level. It is also our memories, our traditions, our warmth, and a way of showing love for ourselves and our loved ones. Let us honestly admit to ourselves that the pursuit of a low glycemic index often turns into an attempt to control what is impossible to control. We can eat an ideal salad with quinoa and avocado, but if we do it in a state of deep stress or hatred for our body, the benefit of such a lunch will be very doubtful. Stress hormones, such as cortisol, are capable of raising blood sugar levels much more strongly than a small portion of durum wheat pasta eaten with pleasure in a circle of friends. We forget that our emotional state is the very foundation upon which all our physical health is built. Many of us still believe that if a product has a low index, it can be eaten in unlimited quantities without thinking about the consequences. But this is another trap into which a simplified perception of reality drives us, because calorie content and overall nutritional density do not disappear. Fructose, which is found in many diet products, has a very low glycemic index, but when consumed in excess, it places a huge burden on our liver. Thus, blindly following a single sugar indicator can lead to us making mistakes that, over time, will affect our well-being and appearance. The myth that complex carbohydrates are always a salvation also requires careful rethinking in the context of our daily lives. For a woman who leads an active lifestyle, exercises, or simply moves a lot during the day, fast carbohydrates can become a necessary source of instant energy. At the same time, for someone who spends the whole day in an office chair, even the slowest carbohydrates in large quantities may turn out to be excessive if they do not find a use. It is important to understand that there are no bad molecules. There is only a mismatch between our needs and what we offer our body at a specific moment in time. I often remember the stories of women who came to me with tears in their eyes, telling me how they had not eaten watermelon or baked potatoes for years because these products are in the red zone of the tables. They felt deprived at family holidays. They felt social isolation, and all this for the sake of numbers that, as it turned out, do not hold absolute truth. When we began to figure out together how their bodies work and returned these products to their diets in the right combinations, a real miracle happened. Their energy returned, the constant feeling of anxiety left, and their weight, strangely enough, began to decrease simply because the factor of chronic stress and overeating against the background of prohibitions disappeared. It is time for us to stop being afraid of food and start seeing it as an ally, not an enemy that is just waiting for the moment to destroy our health. The glycemic index can be a useful guide for those suffering from serious metabolic disorders, but for most of us, it should not become a dictator. True wisdom lies in learning to feel exactly how a particular dish affects you, how you feel an hour after eating, and how much strength you have left by evening. This is a much more accurate and reliable tool than any universal system created for an average person who simply does not exist in nature. Look at the traditional cuisines of the peoples of the world, where people for centuries ate white rice in Japan or white flour in France, and yet remained healthy and slim until old age. The secret of their success lay not in counting indices, but in the culture of eating, in the quality of products, and in the ability to enjoy every bite. They never ate carbohydrates in their pure form in such huge quantities as modern people do, consuming sugary sodas and processed snacks. Their meal was always balanced, including many greens, fermented foods, and healthy fats, which naturally regulated all metabolic processes. We live in an era of excessive information, where new studies appear every day refuting what we believed yesterday. And in this ocean of contradictions, the only reliable lighthouse remains our own intuition and a careful attitude toward ourselves. Do not let numbers and tables deprive you of the joy of life and the opportunity to enjoy the taste of a ripe peach on a sunny summer day. Remember that your body is not a biological machine into which you need to pour a strictly defined fuel, but a complex and beautiful system that needs, above all, your care and understanding. The next time you hear about the dangers of fast carbohydrates or the magical power of the glycemic index, just smile and remember that the truth always lies somewhere in the middle. There's no need to go to extremes and either completely give up sugar or go all out, justifying it by the imperfection of science. Find your balance in which you will feel strong, beautiful, and most importantly, free from endless dietary shackles. After all, in the end, our happiness depends not on how low the index of our breakfast was, but on how much love and kindness we were able to give to ourselves and the world around us. Let your path to health be filled not with struggle, but with discoveries that will make your life richer and brighter in every sense of the word. We deserve to eat deliciously, live fully, and not spend our precious years on the fear of a plate of food. Trust yourself, listen to your heart, and know that you are much more important and valuable than any glycemic indices ever invented by humanity. Your story is not the numbers on the scale or the glucose level in your blood, it is the glow in your eyes and the energy with which you meet each new day, free from myths and full of real, living power. Every woman deserves to wake up in the morning and feel lightness, not because she fasted yesterday, but because she is in complete harmony with her body. We have learned for so long to suppress our true desires that now we face a long journey of returning to our roots, to that natural grace and intuition that we had in childhood. Remember how children eat. They stop when they are full and ask for exactly what they need at that moment, without worrying about whether it is a fast or slow carbohydrate. In this simplicity lies the greatest truth, which we adults so diligently try to complicate with our scientific theories and social expectations. In conclusion, I want to wish each of you to find that very peace in your soul that begins with a peace treaty with your own body. Let food become just food for you, a source of pleasure and strength for the realization of your boldest dreams and plans.